So competition is second nature to humans. It's part of the natural human condition. But it's more than that. It's also something that we use to motivate effort in all different types of contexts, right? Including our own. In the academic world, of course, we compete for promotion, for tenure, we compete for grants. Some of these are more structured competitions than others. And in every structured competition, nearly every one, there are rules about what you can and can't do, about actions that may be detrimental to the organization sponsoring the contest. We call that cheating, of course. The irony of this quote is that Mark Grace is one of the few players of his era who is not implicated in the steroid doping scandal. But naturally, we think of sports, but it's not just sports. Think of an organization, a firm like Amazon. What these two slides, this and the next, will show is that it's clear that many firms like Amazon use explicit competition to motivate their workers. And then within that, they also see behavior, actions detrimental to the organization, which they logically will try to police to prevent those types of actions from occurring, like sabotage of competitors. And so competition creates this incentive. It's an issue for firms like Amazon, but it affects all of us through the behavior within them. So think about a firm like Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo also, of course, used competitive incentives to motivate their workforce, and that led to actions by those workers in creating accounts, as we've all heard the stories of creating accounts that were unauthorized to burnish sales figures, which hurt the organization ultimately with very, very damaging reputation, but also spill over and negatively affected many people in society. So my work, my research is centered around modeling the effects, the incentives for cheating within competition using the models of game theory. So relatively simple game theoretic models in which performance depends on effort and cheating in some random shock, and there's some effort to police. And the key thing about game theoretic models, what it brings us is the tools to see how players best respond to each other, interacting strategically within the incentives created by the game. And of course, as the box top to the latest edition of Monopoly tells us, a key part of this in this context is what can you get away with? So players are trading off the benefits they get from cheating against the possibility of disqualification, right? And they're doing that best responding to the strategies they believe others are following. And all of this, of course, in some context where there's some enforcement mechanism, some organization or part of the organization that polices the behavior. So what kind of questions can we ask in this context? Can we address? So one question in terms of effective enforcement is, should we re-award the prize if the winner is caught cheating? This is an online trivia competition with a $25,000 prize that was recently, nobody got the prize as far as I can tell from the story because the winner was caught cheating. But what's clear from the theory is that's not optimal. We want to pass on the prize because if you think about it, if when the winner is caught cheating, nobody gets the prize, then everybody has a stronger incentive to cheat because even if the cheater gets caught, I still don't get the prize if I didn't cheat and I didn't win. So Floyd Landis won the 2006 Tour de France. A couple weeks later, his prize was void for having doped. You probably don't remember, you may not remember Floyd Landis, but you almost certainly don't remember Oscar Pereiro, who then won the prize. Now, he got the prize re-awarded, but as the quote makes clear, it didn't mean much coming a couple weeks later. And this is a challenge, the challenge of policing behavior within contests such that we can effectively re-award the prize. Another question we can look at is, how should we optimally allocate our enforcement resources, right? We rarely have the resources to audit or inspect every player every time in every contest. So how do we do it, right? How do we best do it to deter? Should we inspect half the players at all events or all the players at half the events? Well, it turns out that the theory shows us that we are better off inspecting all the players at half the events than half the players at all the events. And the reason is, again, we're best responding to each other as contestants. And if I think there's rampant cheating, then if half the players are inspected at all the events, there are always likely to be some cheaters getting away with it. So we achieve more effective deterrence if we concentrate our resources on some events where at least there most of the cheaters are likely to be caught, and there's a better incentive to hope to win through disqualification if I didn't cheat and the cheaters are caught. The next question is, what about we can think about, when we think about cheating, it's very discouraging to lose, and probably especially so if we lose and we think that the other player, the winner, cheated. So if we police cheating better, will that lead to more of the productive effort that we're trying to elicit from contests? We'd like to think so, and broadly that intuition is confirmed, but not always. Turns out when we start from a very low base with very weak enforcement and we start to enforce more effectively, we actually get less productive effort because we're increasing the likelihood of disqualification and the winner being determined by disqualification. So when we start from a low base, we actually have a negative effect on the effort. What about the question of where should we draw the line? If we think about a whole range of misconduct, should we have zero tolerance? Nothing that's detrimental to the organization is tolerated. Anything leads to disqualification. As you may not be surprised to know, it depends on the effectiveness of enforcement. And the best place to draw the line is where the frequency of enforcement is enough to hold that line. So the best response is not to cross it. If we have zero tolerance but weak enforcement and all the contestants are cheating, then that's not effective. If our enforcement can't get better, we should tolerate some level of misconduct. And finally, the last question, what about a David versus Goliath contest? What about very unevenly matched competitors? Your intuition might be, well, who will be more likely to cheat? Probably the weaker contestant to get into the game. And that may be true, but not always. Turns out it's complicated. The player with a greater probability of cheating depends on the circumstances. It depends on the degree of difference in talent, and it depends on the enforcement. What this figure from one of my papers is showing is that in that range, that middle range, where both players are cheating with some probability, both are less likely to cheat as enforcement increases, but at different rates. And so in some range, the stronger player is more likely to cheat. In other ranges, the weaker player is more likely to cheat. Thank you.